A lot was made about the revenge factor when it comes to Mitchell Trubisky versus his former team going into this game. 20 of 28 for 221 yards, a touchdown, no turnovers. What did you think of Trubisky's performance against his old team?
He looked good. And again, the Bears' defense was awful today. And that's the concern because that's supposed to be the strong point of their defense. And Buffalo did, of their team, and Buffalo did whatever the heck they wanted to. And they made Mitch Trubisky look really good. Now, there's no pressure on Mitch Trubisky. He's a backup quarterback now. When you go into the game, you know you're not going to be yanked out of the game. You're not going to be benched because you're not the starter. So you can play free. You can play loose. And he played like it. He made some good throws. He was accurate. His numbers were outstanding. But again, this was more an indictment of the Chicago defense. And again, it's just the preseason. You're not scheming things up. But again, win against your opponent. And they didn't win in this game, which is why Mitch Trubisky carved them up and carved them to shreds.
Trubisky having as many completions as Justin Fields and Andy Dalton combined in this game. Okay, we got to see Zach Moss in some spot duty today in terms of the rushing attack for the Buffalo Bills. Matt Breida out there as well. Devin Singletary got the start. Moss came in. A lot of fans happy to see him back out there after off-season surgery. What does a healthy Zach Moss add to this Bills offense, Pete?
Well, it gives him a power back of sorts, and he's not a big guy, but he's a tough inside runner. And here's the thing about that running game. It wasn't very good at times last year, and that's something they want to really amp up to take some of the pressure off Josh Allen. Josh Allen had an MVP-like season, but they didn't run the ball, which, other than him, who he did a great job getting outside and making plays with his legs, but they want to consistently be able to run the football. Remember, you throw to score in this league, you run to win. And Josh Allen put up big numbers throwing the football, but they have to be able to run it when they need to run it. When you have a close game in the fourth quarter, run the football. And I think that's why getting a guy like Zach Moss back, getting Devin Singletary going, and even Matt Breida, who has the home run ability, that's important for this team. The offensive line should be good, should be stout, should be physical. So this is the time for them to have to run the football and take some of the pressure off Josh Allen.
Do you think there's enough diversity in this run game for the Bills in order to be able to accomplish that this year, Pete?
I think there is. Again, though, it all goes back to the offensive line. You got to be able to move people up front. At times last year, they didn't do that. And that's why I think they have to put more of a focus on that, particularly when games are close. You can't just ask, Josh Allen to get outside and run and carry. They actually run quarterback sweeps with him. That shouldn't be happening. He's too valuable to that team. They have to be able to run the ball more conventionally, and I think this year they will run the ball better because I do think the offensive line will be improved, and I think those backs will be much better than they were a year ago.
Okay, who are the players that helped themselves with their performances today, Pete?
Well, I thought Greg Rousseau did a really nice job. He's a first-round pick, Buffalo Bills. And I think he's going to be one of those guys that gives them a long edge rusher, and they need that. Remember, if you're going to win the AFC, you got to be able to put Pat Mahomes on his back. The Chiefs are the current champion, and they're the team you have to go through. You have to be able to knock that guy down, and they couldn't do it in their games against them last year. That's why they went out and drafted Greg Rousseau. That's why they went out and drafted Boogie Basham 1-2. They feel like they'll amp up their pass rush. They're bigger. I think that's a team. Remember, they were not a big defensive team last year. They will be much bigger up front, much more physical. So he helped himself. Trubisky obviously helped himself. And I think, Jake Kumerow did some good things. Remember, Jake Kumerow is the guy who Aaron Rodgers got all ruffled. They ruffled his feathers by not keeping him and cutting him last year. And Buffalo picked him up, and he's done some really good things for them. Now, that's a deep receiving group in Buffalo, so he's probably not going to see the field that much. But he looked good today.
Okay, on the other side of that, who hurt themselves? Who were the losers in this contest, as it were?
Well, I think when you look at the overall loser, I think it's the depth of the Chicago Bears. I really think that, you look at their depth, it's a problem. If they have any injuries up front on the offensive line, it will be a disaster. It's not a good group as is. They went out and signed Jason Peters. I think he came into the league when I started covering it way back about 32 years ago. He's a veteran guy, sure, but he's not the same player he used to be. But that tells you how desperate they are. Remember, Tevin Jenkins, their high draft pick, is no longer there. He has a back injury. He'll probably miss half the season. So it's a concern up front. I think the depth at the offensive line, but the depth overall. It was not a good performance by the Bears. I also think that when you look at their group together, if they don't pick it up defensively, remember, this is a team that they carry the cards for that team. They have to be able to stop people defensively, and they looked very, lethargic and didn't look like they were a good defense today, and that's a big concern.
Lots of questions for Matt Nagy to answer over the course of the next week as they get ready for their preseason finale. Thanks, Pete. Enjoy the rest of the action today and tonight. I know you're going to be all over it. You know who else is going to be enjoying all the action today? Will Brinson and the guys in the Pick Six podcast. They're on top of everything going on as the 2021 season approaches. Download and follow the Pick Six podcast wherever you get your preferred podcasts.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.